Oh God, what a morning. Welcome to Alive. What's the name of this show? Alive and Unwell. Wait, what does it say my name of my show is? Alive and Unwell. I'm proud of myself for doing this thing because I have cramps and I've done about I don't know, 200,000 talk shows. And I don't think anyone asks me how I'm feeling, literally feeling. And now I can introduce myself as Richard Lewis, the host of Alive and Unwell. And I'm going to have bullshit sessions with people that I admire, people that I know, people that don't like me, people that love me. But I do have cramps. And this episode, I think it's episode number 2, is with Carl Bernstein. You ever hear of him? Of course you have. And it's at a pretty crazy time. I just saw him on 12 shows this morning, but I'm going to let him in a second. He's a great guy, and he has a great laugh. If I can make him laugh, it's sort of like a. That's exactly how it sounds. It's like an elk, but you'll see if I make him laugh. And that's not my goal. My goal is just to have some fun. And I've had a couple of tough years, and I just want to get back in the ring and just have some laughs, man. And actually, I retired from stand-up in 2019 after 50 years, and after all these talk shows, I wanted to have to turn the tables and see how I felt talking to other people, and other than myself and about myself. Enough already, right? So let's bring Carl Bernstein in and see how he does interviewing me, because what I just said to you was bullshit. I need to be interviewed. We'll see what happens. Carl, are you connecting, babe? He just rejected me. I mean, Carl, I don't think I see you. This is the second week in a row where I've had, my wife is the producer, so write all the letters.
No, just trust me. With my abilities on the big web, it's me at my end.
Oh no, wait, no, I could still blame Joyce. It's okay, Carl. Hey,
wait a minute. Let's see if we can make this work.
If I was Mel Brooks, I'd go, look at you, cute, you're pretty, you're smart, you're nice, you're perfect, you're seditious, you're not seditious. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning.
Hey, listen, we don't have to say where you are. No one knows where I am. I'm somewhere in South Jersey.
Right.
And you're in Birmingham, Alabama. Is that where I'm calling you now?
That's it. Somewhere near there, by way of the interstate that has arrived me at the end of Long Island.
I know. Just a very beautiful setting you have. When you watch TV, and you were on this, I saw you this morning, and I got to slow down. Thanks for being on. Thanks for being on this, whatever it is. I'm not sure what my intentions are, except I just want to be able to would you just make that sound with a pencil? Are you tapping nervously with a pencil?
Yeah, I'm tapping nervously. But yes, I do that.
I just saw you on the tube moments ago in a sport jacket and a tie, and now you put on more of a relaxed outfit for me. Is it fair to say?
That's fair to say. That's
There's the laugh. Did I not tell you I can do an impression of Carl Bernstein? Who does Carl Bernstein? Richard fucking Lewis.
I don't know, but I think we better start this over.
I don't think so. I think you're doing fantastic.
Oh yeah.
This is not. Listen, you were just on CNN, and it was a straightforward, the 50th anniversary of All the President's Men and all that stuff. This is the opposite. You gotta. I'm trying to help you, Carl, to relax. You've already. Right. That was a very heavy interview with you and Bob.
Tell everybody how we do this on the phone all the time.
We do this on the phone all the time. Don't make me look foolish, Carl. The thing is, I have discovered once early on when we became friends. I forget how, but we did. We met somewhere, and we sort of dug each other, and we laughed, and we enjoyed stuff. I found that initially I was, and I forget me. You feel that people are intimidated by your history in journalism and by your brain power, basically. Do they feel, do they sort of creep into a discussion when you go, oh, I don't know nothing, I don't know anything, like, do you get that from people, or you just hang out with smart cats? Not me.
I just hang out with people like you. That's about it. It's fun.
Well,
It's a great life. And that's it.
well, okay. Well, you don't have to end so abruptly and make it I mean, that was a nerve wrack. I want you to. I have to relax you before we.
I think that's right. That's go ahead. Do you
Look
use your
you.
stuff?
Don't tell me to go ahead. This is my show. I'll go ahead whenever
That's
I
true.
want to go.
Okay.
Do you think you have more enemies than friends?
No, I think people are really wonderful. I think there are a lot of people on one side of the political equation that might have a certain dislike for me. Hopefully, those people on both sides of the equation are interested in the truth. And the truth can be difficult. It can be difficult to find out, to determine what the truth is. But my hope is that most people are willing to entertain what a notion of the truth might be. And my experience is, see, look, you and I have talked about this. People are really wonderful to us. Come on, let's really acknowledge. People, I think, appreciate what you do. That's why they're watching this. That's why you have the following you do. My experience is that people really have an appreciation for the work.
Well, I'll take myself out of that equation, but I appreciate the sentiment. But I was thinking, what's been going on for 6 or 7 years now, and you reported it, and in the interim, you wrote that book that I read in 6 sittings about how you started in the news business. It was just astounding, and I want to talk about that a little later, because I was totally riveted to that book from the beginning and the end. But since I just saw you on the tube, and I don't know when this will be on YouTube, and maybe later, maybe tomorrow. Everything is so, and I'm trying to avoid this shit, because everyone is getting this news, and they're getting it, and unfortunately they get it from their side of the equation. And I have to say this because it just bothers me. I think, and you were talking about people like us because we're in the public eye, but I want to ask you about this, the 30% of people that hear the truth and are willing to stomach what we've stomached from the last president, and how it's gotten to the boiling point where we're an election away from a monarch, and from an autocracy. And I just don't know. And I have to ask you this, because I've asked a lot of friends, I've asked a lot of writers, how do we educate that 25% who seemingly have no morals, and it's not just, progressive stuff. It's not just, right wing, left wing. It's like, what about this country? The country it's on the brink of ending. And I don't know how do you turn around that 25% that just don't want to be labeled as a Democrat or even an independent, but they want to just, they want to go down with the ship. And those people are causing great duress to this country. I mean, how do you change? How do you go about changing minds and hearts?
Wow, that's a lot to absorb, Richard. First of all, I'm not going to go there with you on the thing about people with no morals. I think it's easy to find people with no morals and subliminal no morals and real no morals all over the political spectrum. I don't think that's something that's limited to one side or the other. I think we have, and you say you were just watching what I had said, what Bob Woodward had said on television a little bit ago, and what I said is we have the first seditious president of the United States. We have a president of the United States who is more criminal than Richard Nixon was a criminal president. Nixon was at least willing to abdicate the office when it was clear that he, because Republicans said that he could no longer serve honorably, that Republicans in the Senate would have convicted him of high crimes and misdemeanors. He knew he had to leave, and he knew he had to leave because Republicans, the Republican leadership of the Senate and the House, said to him, Barry Goldwater, the 1964 nominee of his party to be the president of the United States, great conservative, Goldwater led a delegation of senators and congressmen, Republicans all, to the White House, sat down with Richard Nixon. Nixon said to Goldwater, Barry, how many votes do I have in a Senate trial? Fully expecting that Goldwater and the Republican leaders would tell Nixon that he had enough votes in a trial to survive. And Goldwater looked at Nixon and he said, Mr. President, you might have half a dozen votes and you're not going to have mine. And that was the end of the Nixon presidency. He resigned 2 days later. Where is Mitch McConnell? You know, Mitch McConnell is someone, and I can tell you this, I've reported it, who despises Donald Trump. Absolutely despises Trump. I did a story saying that 21 Republican members of the Senate, whom I named, despise Donald Trump, hold him in contempt, and yet are so craven that they have been unwilling to speak out against him. One of those 21 denied that story. There was no doubt about the accuracy of it. I got a call the next day from a former senator, a Republican, who said, Carl, the number may be closer to 40 Republicans in the Senate. So I think, look, we tend to look at our politics in this country and our journalism, for that matter, as separate from the larger culture of the country. What we're experiencing, I think, in the country is cultural. We've been in a cold civil war in this country for 25 years. It took Trump to come along and ignite that cold civil war, and that's where we are. And we're, as you indicated, in a terrible place because we have had a president of the United States willing to ignite the whole system, to burn it down. That's really what January 6th is about a president willing to break the law, to burn down the institutions of government so that he could hold power, a coup attempt. One would hope that there are enough leaders in the Republican Party that they're going to say, wait a minute, but so far they haven't, that we cannot have a seditious president of the United States. Sedition is about fomenting insurrection. That's exactly what this president has done.
Well, yeah, it's, I hear you. What always strikes me when you were mentioning McConnell is that nobody has stood up tall over these last 4 or 5 years. On occasion, they'll throw something out like the former governor of New Jersey. He doesn't. He'll do that. But to me, the Republican Party, which we want to have a Republican Party, we want to have a Democratic Party, we want to have independents, but they're not a party now. And when I close my eyes, and I've been in psychotherapy for like 50 years, so I tend to psychoanalyze situations, which is you can tell from this split screen who needs analysis and who doesn't. But
I'm sure there are a lot of people that would reverse that equation, but go ahead.
I'm trying to do you a favor. I can make up
a couple of
fibs. I'm fibbing a little bit here. I think you could use psychoanalysis more than me sometimes. No, but I sit down and I just sort of meditate about what is in the minds of some of these Republicans, by and large, mostly. Do they really look in the mirror and know, and these are very smart people, when you hear Harvard, Yale, blah blah blah, graduate, law school, and yet they see what's going on during the day, they hear this bullshit, and yet they just don't want to give up their flat, their power. And they just, when you said don't talk about morals and ethics and all that, I mean, it is about morals to me. It's about people who are looking at themselves in the mirror, and they have no soul because they're going back to work and they're going back to the Congress, but they're not opening their fucking mouth to speak the truth to power. And my initial question to you is I'm answering it myself now, if you don't mind. If the people don't vote these people out of office, we are stuck in this malaise, maybe for way longer than I'll be alive. I mean, the last presidential election, people were saying this is the most important election. It seems now it's getting more and more urgent to have an election, and that means not have an autocrat in the White House, and it's all about the voting. And I know I'm rambling because I'm so upset about all this. I was at Ohio State in the '60s, and that was the '60s. We all know it's always been crazy as far as I'm concerned. I seeing you here and wanting to share your exquisite background with people of this. I'm rambling, but let me just slow down a second and say that I don't understand how people can be in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, and I'm in my 70s, and to realize what this country, and to know what this country started from. We know all that, how dark it's always been, and it seems to me that we haven't really changed all that much. Because when I was in school, yeah, we talk about what LBJ did, for voting and a lot of positive legislation. He was a giant among men for that. But yet, look what was going on with Vietnam. I mean, I don't even remember I wasn't born, I was born in the mid '40s, but there's never really been a great time. When was a great time in this country, Carl? When should we be proud of being in America?
First of all, I think the American story is a great story. And the idea of being so nostalgic as to deny that the American story is a problematic one, that would not be terribly productive, it seems to me. Look, this is a country that was built to some extent in its early history on slavery. We've had and there have been terrible elements of our history, like any country. I think that this discussion reminds me that there's a danger in dogmatism. That, look, I don't disagree that we are in a period in which one of the two major political parties has come to embrace a demagogue, an autocrat, somebody who really doesn't know the history of this country nor appreciate it, who is as dangerous or more dangerous a president perhaps than we've had in our history, certainly in our modern history. And again, you can look at what Bob Woodward, myself, had written and said about Donald Trump. These things are about Trump, but we're probably the most complex culture and society in the world in many regards. The contradictions of our history, the contradictions of our people, the contradictions of our ideals, and which of those ideals have been realized and which have not been realized, give rise to this complexity about who we are. And my job as a journalist and as a reporter is really about what I regard as, Woodward and I have said this for half a century, about the best obtainable version of the truth. And what you find out about the best obtainable version of the truth is that a lot of it defies simplicity. And so to to tar all members of one party or the other seems to me to not be representative of what the truth is. And at the same time, I think the best obtainable version of the truth is that one party right now, that its leadership has been willing to go along with a notion of governance and a failure to look at the principles of the best of this country. Yeah, I think something terrible is happening, but I think we have to look at it in terms of the complexities of who we are, of what our problems are, and then the other element, that does not mean that the truth is neutral. Seems to me the truth, as a matter of conception, the truth is not neutral. Take a look at civil rights. Take a look at the civil rights movement. Lynchings are not neutral. Take a look at Watergate. No, Watergate was not neutral. What happened in Watergate was that we got a criminal president of the United States. And there's nothing neutral about that judgment. It's based on fact, based on the best obtainable version of the truth. When Richard Nixon ran for president in 1972, in November of 1972, he won by the biggest election landslide, I think, in our history. And yet 2 years later, a majority of people in this country, including Republicans, some believed he had to leave office. That has not happened in the case of Donald Trump. So it speaks to the larger equation of the people of the country and the complexity and why it is that Trump has the kind of appeal that he has to so many people. Do I think that it's tragic that so many people in the country are willing to embrace what Donald Trump has said and done? Yeah, I think it is. But at the same time, I think we need to look at some of the deeper reasons beyond people's mere prejudices or anger to find out why is it that this is going on in the country today. I think we need a lot more reporting on who we are as a people to get at the best obtainable version of the truth. I think we need to do a lot more work. It's not just about reporting on Donald Trump.
Carl, thanks for that. I'm far more naive than articulate about this area. I've lived in a cocoon for over 53 years, traveling across the country, talking about me, but always being mindful of what's going on in the country.
I was going to say that's something. Let me interrupt. I mean, we both had the same experience.
How dare you interrupt?
I'm going to interrupt because we both had an amazing experience. We've had the opportunity, as you're putting it, to travel for half a century, both of us, between the two coasts of this country where most people don't go, and to learn about who the people of the country are and how they live in ways that most people maybe aren't lucky enough to have these experiences that we've had. And what I've learned is I keep coming back to the idea of the complexity. And you and I have had a lot of discussions about this, but pick up where I left off there. But I think this opportunity is the opposite of being in a cocoon. I don't think you're in a cocoon.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying. I get that. I just when I watch the news, and I try to watch the different aspects of journalism on different shows, and this has been bandied about by a lot of journalists and op-ed people, but we tend to watch networks that justify our belief system.
That's right.
And it's not really, it doesn't really help our country that much. I mean, and I'm not sure what the answer is. God knows I'm not running a network, but I mean, how do you feel about, should an anchor go should an anchor express any opinion other than just the straight facts?
Well, again, I think
Did Cronkite do that in Vietnam? Would you say that when he
in fact, let's take Cronkite in Vietnam. That's the best example I think you could give about the truth is not neutral. You know, there was a huge debate going on at the time of the Vietnam War about whether it was justified, about whether we were winning or losing. Our leaders were telling us that we were winning.
And showing our great soldiers coming back in body bags too. 56.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying, absolutely, 56,000 Americans died in Vietnam, and not to speak of hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese, Cambodians, Indo-Chinese people, and then Walter Cronkite, who had a huge following, partly because he did not deliver opinions without putting them in context with fact. I think what Cronkite did was the best obtainable version of the truth. And what particularly he, through his going to Vietnam, through his studying and listening to his correspondents, what they were telling him, he came to the conclusion that we were losing the war, that we were losing our principles because of this war. And no, he was not neutral. But he told the truth. Truth was not neutral in terms of that war.
Did he get any heat? Did he get any heat call back then from his own network? Or was he, as they said, the most trusted man in America, and he flew with that?
I don't know enough about the internal debates that were going on at CBS at the time. I mean, again, I'll go to Watergate. What I do know is that Walter Cronkite, at a crucial point during our reporting at the Washington Post of the Watergate story, during a period when most of what we were writing was not believed by most of our colleagues in the press corps, certainly was not believed by a majority of Americans, Walter Cronkite, in his broadcast, he determined with his colleagues in the news division of CBS that they would do 2 nights in a row about Watergate, based to a large extent on our reporting. And, you know, what is it? What's the most important thing journalists do and reporters and news organizations? They decide what they think is news. And so that's what Cronkite did in that Vietnam reporting and in the case of Watergate. He thought that the Watergate story, as large extent as reported by the Washington Post, by Bob Woodward, myself, also great reporting by the New York Times, Cy Hurst of the New York Times, and some CBS reporters as well who were by then into the story. But it was relatively early. It was in the first few months after the break-in at Watergate. Remember, Watergate went on for 2 years between the break-in and the resignation of Richard Nixon. And also, it's important to remember what Watergate was about. It was a huge conspiracy led by the President of the United States to undermine the very electoral system in this country, something also that Donald Trump has done. But Trump's excess, both in terms of the law, in terms of constitutional governance, has exceeded anything that we've seen before. And his demagoguery and his unbridled authoritarianism. Take a look what he said in the last couple of weeks about what and his people have put forward, what a new Donald Trump presidency would be like in terms of rolling back really so much of what has been done in legislation and in terms of who we are as a people and our values of the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years in this country. Extraordinary. But let's go back again to what Walter Cronkite did there. In Watergate, in the Vietnam War, he made a decision based on reporting about what is news. And that reporting by CBS was a huge milestone in the Watergate story and the fate of Richard Nixon, because with those broadcasts by, as you put him, the most trusted man in America, as he was sometimes called, it got the attention of great numbers of people. What happened in Watergate was, up to, I don't know how many months, but I don't know, 6 months, 8 months before Nixon had to resign office, the polls showed that a majority of people still backed Richard Nixon and believed he should not have to leave the presidency. And then came his tapes, in which people had an opportunity to hear what was on his tapes, to hear his conduct in the Oval Office, to learn without any doubt about his criminal acts, and public opinion started to change, as did the opinion of leaders in Republican leaders in the House and the Senate. That is what did not change, has not changed in the Trump years. That his party has gone along with excusing and enabling the most extreme acts of his presidency, including, look at what you were watching, and you referred to what Woodward and I had said on the air the other night. It was, it said very clearly, we have had a president of the United States who attempted a coup to undermine the legitimate results of an election for the presidency of the United States. It was plain and simple an attempt by a coup to keep the orderly transition of the presidency to the duly elected next president of the United States. The incumbent president tried to stop that from happening through a coup so that the electoral process could not go forward. This is something that had never happened in our history. It never happened in the White House before. And we have to face these facts, not just as the best obtainable version of the truth, but because the truth here is not neutral.
Carl, I was sitting around this morning and I had about 1,000 personal observations that I wanted to throw your way about your books on the Pope and Hillary and the book that your last book about growing up in the news business. But I was so mesmerized by you and Bob, and I know you have another the commemorative issues coming out now which is not just a hokey thing, but it's not just the same book. You have a 15-page, I think, forward, which is great, and so it's an important read for all of us. But I just want to say this, Carl, I cherish our friendship, but moreover, watching you guys this morning and then having the luxury of just watching you split screen, it was very easy for me to, and it's hard for me to shut up, but I didn't want to get a word in edgewise because I was mesmerized and so grateful to have you as a friend and have you talk to people on this show about what's going down right now, and with your wealth of history and knowledge. And I love you for it. And it's time for me to go to the bathroom. So that's the break I get.
People should listen to our phone calls. I think that the next time out, maybe we ought to just record the phone calls and.
Well, I mean, with all due respect,
rather than a formal interview like this.
Carl, you're an investigative reporter, you're an author, you're a journalist, and everyone knows who you are. And I've been a comedian my whole life. And I sat here, I might as well have been a parakeet trainer. There was nothing that came out of me at all humorous but to me, my goal today was to inform myself and others who watch this of your brilliance. And thank you for being on the show. And I'll probably call you in 10 minutes and tell you I love you again.
Yeah,
have a great afternoon.
That's the way it ought to be.
Okay,
Much
buddy.
love.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.